Some nights carve themselves into you like a blade you can't pull out. I'm Scarlett, 34, and I still feel the weight of that evening at my younger sister Grace's charity gala, like a memory that refuses to fade. It was supposed to be her night, her triumph, but it turned into something else entirely, something I'll never forget. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon to stay updated with all our latest stories. Your support means the world. If you find this video valuable, please give it a like. I'd love to hear where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. Now, let's dive into the story. I stepped into the ballroom, the kind of place that screams money. Crystal chandeliers dripping from the ceiling, velvet drapes framing floor-to-ceiling windows, and the soft hum of jazz weaving through the air. Downtown Chicago glittered outside, a perfect backdrop for Grace's big moment. She'd organized this gala to raise funds for kids with cancer, and the room buzzed with donors in tailored suits and shimmering gowns, clinking champagne flutes like they were toasting their own generosity. I wore a sleek black dress. Long sleeves, nothing loud, just enough to blend into the shadows. My daughter, Lily, 7 years old and all wide-eyed wonder, clung to my hand, her green dress swishing as she bounced beside me. "Mommy, look at the lights!" she chirped, pointing at the glowing strands crisscrossing above us. I forced a smile, but my stomach was already twisting into knots. Grace stood near the platform, radiant in a silver gown that caught every light in the room. She was 29, the family's golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Beside her loomed Lucas, her fiancé, all sharp cheekbones and sharper charm. He worked the crowd like a politician, flashing that $1,000,000 smile. I smoothed my dress for the third time, my palms clammy, trying to shake the feeling that I didn't belong. Lily tugged me toward the dessert table, her voice bright. "Can we see the cupcakes? They've got sprinkles!" I nodded, trailing her, grateful for the distraction. But then I caught it, Lucas's voice, low and cutting, as he leaned toward Grace. "Keep Scarlett back, she's a curse." The words hit me like a slap, sharp and cold. My breath hitched, and for a second I thought I'd misheard. Grace didn't flinch, just gave a tiny nod, her eyes flicking to me briefly before darting away. I froze, the chatter around me fading into a dull roar. A curse? Me? The label wasn't new, but hearing it here, now, sliced deeper than I expected. It started when I was 10. Dad died in a factory fire, faulty wiring, they said. But my Aunt Clara whispered it was my bad energy. She'd caught me laughing too loud that morning, said I'd jinxed him. After that, the losses piled up. Layoffs, a cheating ex who left me with nothing but a broken lease, whispers at family dinners about my string of misfortunes. Lily's birth was my miracle, a stubborn little fighter who came despite the doctor's warnings. Even then, my mother, Victoria, had sighed, "Let's hope she doesn't inherit your streak." I'd laughed it off, but the sting never faded. Now, here I was, surrounded by relatives who greeted me with tight smiles and pitying glances. Uncle Henry, my mom's older brother, was the exception. He'd always seen me as more than a walking disaster. He waved from across the room, his grin warm, but it faltered when he saw my face. I looked away, pretending to admire the floral centerpieces, when Victoria approached. Her heels clicked against the polished floor, each step deliberate. She stopped inches from me, her perfume sharp and floral, and leaned in. "Stay off the platform, Scarlett," she said, her voice low, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. "Lucas doesn't want your shadow on this tonight." I blinked, the air conditioning chilling my skin despite the packed room. "My shadow?" I echoed, barely a whisper. She straightened, her lips a flat line. "You know how you are. Let's not ruin Grace's moment." She turned and glided back to the crowd, leaving me rooted to the spot. Lily frowned up at me, her tiny brow creasing. "Mommy, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft but piercing. I crouched beside her, forcing a smile. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just stay close, okay?" But her eyes narrowed, like she could see right through me. and I wondered if she'd caught more than I realized. The gala rolled on like a well-oiled machine, every laugh and clink of glass sharpening the ache in my chest. Grace and Lucas took the platform, a spotlight bathing them in golden light as they announced a record-breaking donation, $500,000 for the kids. The crowd erupted, clapping and cheering, but I stood at the edge of the ballroom, arms crossed tight against my ribs. My heart pounded too fast, a drumbeat I couldn't quiet. Lily sat on a velvet chair beside me, swinging her legs, her patent leather shoes catching the light. "Why aren't we up there, Mommy?" she asked, her voice cutting through the noise like a bell. I swallowed hard, crouching to her level. "Some people think I'm not lucky enough to be there," I said, keeping my tone light, but the words tasted bitter. Her lips pursed, confused, and I straightened, hoping she'd let it drop. The room shimmered with celebration, donors posing for photos, waiters weaving through with trays of hors d'oeuvres. But I felt like a ghost, drifting outside it all. Victoria appeared again, her silver hair catching the chandelier glow as she leaned close. "You've always brought trouble, Scarlett," she whispered, her breath cool against my ear. "Let's not spoil Grace's night." She didn't wait for a reply, just drifted back to the platform where Grace beamed like a queen. Trouble. That word clawed at me, dragging up memories I'd tried to bury. Dad's fire, the way Aunt Clara's voice had hissed cursed at his funeral, how Mom's warmth had dimmed toward me ever since. Grace had been the light that survived, the one they all rallied around. I squeezed my hands into fists, nails digging into my palms, fighting the sting behind my eyes. I caught Uncle Henry's gaze from the front row. He'd always been different, kinder, telling me stories of Dad when I was little, insisting I wasn't the problem. Now his smile faded as he studied me, like he could sense the weight pressing me down. I looked away, pretending to adjust Lily's hair, when a woman in a red dress sidled up, her perfume cloying. She smirked, leaning in. "Heard Lucas say you're why Grace almost canceled this. Bad vibes, huh?" Her words landed like a punch, stealing my breath. Had he told everyone? My stomach lurched and I managed a weak, "I don't know what you mean," but she just chuckled and sauntered off, leaving me reeling. The room spun slower, like time itself was taunting me. I was 8 again, hiding behind the couch as relatives whispered I'd brought ruin on us all. Grace had been 4, clinging to me while Mom wept, but somewhere along the line she'd become the star, and I'd turned into the shadow. I squeezed Lily's hand, her warmth the only thing tethering me. She didn't deserve this, didn't deserve the way they looked at me like I'd taint her too. "Mommy, you okay?" she asked, her voice small. I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside I was unraveling. Why did it still hurt? Why couldn't I shake this label they'd pinned on me like a scarlet letter? Lily tilted her head, squinting toward the platform where Lucas stood, one arm around Grace, his smile too perfect, too practiced. "He's not nice, Mommy," she whispered, her tone firm, like she'd decided it right then. I blinked, startled. "Shh, Lily, don't say that," I murmured, glancing around to see if anyone heard. But her words stuck, a tiny spark in the dark. She didn't pull her gaze from him, her eyes narrowing like she saw something I couldn't, or wouldn't. My pulse quickened, a mix of fear and something sharper flickering in my chest. I wanted to scoop her up, leave this gilded cage behind, but my feet wouldn't move. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was pain, or maybe it was the faint hope that Grace's big night wouldn't end with me slinking away defeated again. Whatever it was, it held me there, and I had no idea Lily was already plotting something bigger. The MC's voice boomed through the ballroom, smooth and polished. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring the families up for photos!" The crowd shifted, a wave of silk and tuxedos flowing toward the platform. I took a step forward, instinct pulling me toward Grace, my sister, the one I'd bandaged knees for as kids. Then I saw it. Lucas's glare, sharp as a blade, slicing through the sea of faces. His lips moved, silent but clear. "Stay back." Grace laughed at something he said, her voice bright but her eyes avoiding mine. My chest tightened, and I stopped cold, retreating to the shadows. Lily tugged my sleeve, her voice rising. "Why aren't we going, Mommy?" I knelt beside her, my throat dry. "We'll watch from here, sweetheart," I said, forcing calm into my words. She frowned, insistent. "But we're family too. Even the cousins are going." I swallowed the truth. Sometimes we don't get to go where others do, and whispered, "It's okay, Lily." It wasn't okay, not even close. The guests pressed closer, phones flashing like fireflies as Grace and Lucas posed, picture perfect. Victoria stood beside them, her posture regal, not sparing me a glance. Uncle Henry lingered near the front, his eyes soft with something like regret as they met mine for a fleeting second. I hugged myself tighter, the air thick with the scent of lilies and champagne, pretending I didn't care. But I did. I always had. I'd stayed up with Grace through her teenage heartbreaks, cheered her on when she launched this charity. Now I wasn't even good enough to stand in her glow. The thought burned, and I shifted my weight, trying to breathe through it. Then it happened. Lily slipped from my grasp. Her little hand pulled free, and before I could react, she was off, darting through the crowd. "Lily!" I hissed, lunging after her, but she was too quick, her green dress vanishing between two rows of chairs. Gasps rippled around me, heads turning, murmurs starting like a low hum. My heart dropped to my stomach as she reached the platform steps, her tiny frame climbing with purpose. She wasn't sneaking or hesitating. She marched, shoulders squared, as tall as a 7-year-old could be. Grace froze mid-smile. Lucas's jaw tightened. Victoria's head snapped toward her, eyes wide. I pushed forward, whispering apologies, desperate to grab her before she made this worse. But Lily had other plans. She reached the microphone, her hands wrapping around it like she'd been born for this moment. My breath caught, a strangled, "Lily, no," dying in my throat. Lucas stepped forward, chuckling nervously. "She's just a kid. Let's not—" But she cut him off, her voice clear and piercing. "Can I tell you about the groom?" The room stilled, every eye locking onto her. My legs trembled. I couldn't move, couldn't think. Lucas waved a hand. "She's joking." But Lily stood firm, chin up. "I'm Lily. I'm 7, and I heard something bad." She pointed at Lucas, her finger steady. "He said Mommy's a curse, but he's the mean one. He yelled at Aunt Grace last week, called her stupid." The air sucked out of the ballroom. Grace's face flushed, her eyes darting to Lucas, searching. A woman near me coughed. Another lowered her drink. Lucas laughed again, sharper this time. "She's making it up. Kids do that." But Lily didn't waver. "I heard him by the dessert table, talking loud. He wasn't nice." Whispers sparked, spreading like wildfire. I gripped the back of a chair, my knees weak, torn between yanking her down and letting her speak. Grace's smile vanished, her hands clenching at her sides. Victoria's mouth parted, a rare crack in her composure. Lucas's charm faltered, his eyes narrowing as he stepped closer to Lily. "Enough of this," he snapped, but she didn't flinch. She stared right back, fearless. My heart pounded, pride and panic crashing together. She wasn't just defending me, she was lighting a match, and I had no idea how big the fire would get. Lily stood like a tiny sentinel on that glittering platform, her voice slicing through the stunned silence. "He said he didn't even love Aunt Grace, just her money." The words dropped like a grenade, and the ballroom detonated. A sharp gasp cut through the crowd, followed by a chorus of murmurs that swelled into a roar. Lucas's face twisted, red creeping up his neck. "She's lying," he barked, his voice cracking as he lunged toward the mic. But Lily stepped back, clutching it tighter, her eyes blazing. "I heard him on the phone by the cake table," she said, calm as if she were reciting a school poem. "He laughed about it." My hands shook, gripping the chair so hard my knuckles whitened. Pride swelled in my chest, but panic clawed at my throat. I couldn't stop this now, even if I wanted to. Grace's head snapped toward Lucas, her silver gown shimmering as she trembled. "Is that true?" she whispered, barely audible over the growing chaos. He stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. "She's a kid. She misheard me." But Grace's eyes narrowed, searching his face like she was seeing him for the first time. The crowd leaned in, phones dipping as people forgot to film, too caught up in the unraveling. Lily didn't blink. He said, "Grace is my ticket out. I'm not dumb. I know what that means." A man near the front choked on his drink, coughing loudly, while a woman in pearls clutched her chest, whispering to her husband. Then Uncle Henry stepped forward, his broad shoulders cutting through the haze of stunned faces. His voice was low, steady, but it carried like thunder. "I heard it too, last month at the office. He bragged about securing the bag with Grace, said she was too naive to notice." The room exploded. Whispers turned to shouts. A glass clattered to the floor somewhere. Victoria gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Henry, stop this nonsense," she snapped, but he shook his head, unflinching. "It's time someone said it." Lucas's charm shattered, rage flashing in his eyes as he whirled on Henry. "You're lying, both of you!" But the damage was done. Grace's breath hitched, her hands fumbling with the engagement ring on her finger. She yanked it off, the diamond catching the light as she hurled it at Lucas. It bounced off his chest and skittered across the platform with a faint, pitiful clink. "We're done," she said, her voice raw, breaking on the last word. The crowd parted as she stumbled back, tears welling in her eyes. Lucas froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Grace's gaze found mine, wide and shattered, and for the first time in years, she saw me. Not the curse, not the shadow, but me, Scarlett, her sister. Something cracked open inside me, a flood of relief and pain I hadn't let myself feel. Lucas recovered, his face hardening into a sneer. He stormed toward the edge of the platform, shoving past a stunned MC, but not before he leaned close to me, his breath hot and venomous. "This is your fault," he hissed, his finger jabbing the air an inch from my face. I flinched but didn't step back. Lily's courage held me steady. She hopped down from the mic, skipping to my side, her grin wide and triumphant. "He's mad 'cause he got caught," she said, loud enough for the nearest guests to hear. A few stifled laughs broke through the tension, and I pulled her close, my heart hammering against my ribs. The gala was a wreck. People shouting, some rushing to Grace, others glaring at Lucas as he shoved through the crowd toward the exit. Victoria stood rigid, her arms crossed, but her eyes betrayed her, flickering with doubt, maybe even shame. Uncle Henry stayed by the platform, nodding at me like I'd finally earned my place. Lily squeezed my hand, her voice a whisper now. "Did I do good, Mommy?" I knelt, cupping her face. "You did amazing," I said, my voice thick. The fire she'd lit was still burning, and I knew the ashes would change everything. The ballroom turned into a fractured mess, guests scattered like leaves in a storm, some whispering furiously, others grabbing coats to flee the drama. The platform stood empty now, fairy lights flickering over the discarded ring like a sad little spotlight. I lingered near the back, Lily's hand warm in mine, her breathing steady while mine raced. Grace pushed through the thinning crowd, her silver gown creased, her face streaked with mascara. She stopped in front of me, eyes red and searching. "Scarlett," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry. I let him poison me against you." Before I could respond, she pulled me into a hug, tight, real, the kind we hadn't shared since we were kids. My arms hesitated, then wrapped around her, tears pricking my eyes as the weight of years softened, just a little. She stepped back, wiping her face with a trembling hand. "I should have known better," she murmured. "He kept saying you'd ruin this, ruin me." I believed him. Her words hit hard, but they weren't sharp anymore, just raw. I shook my head, voice low. "You're not the only one he fooled." Lily tugged my dress, looking up at Grace. "You're still pretty, Aunt Grace," she said, matter of fact. Grace laughed, a broken sound, and knelt to her level. "You're my hero, Lily, you know that?" Lily beamed, hugging my leg, and I felt a swell of pride so fierce it nearly knocked me over. Uncle Henry ambled over, his tie loosened, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "That girl's braver than all of us combined," he said, nodding at Lily. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, gentle but firm. "You raised her right, Scarlett." I managed a small smile, the knot in my chest loosening. Grace straightened, brushing hair from her face. "Stay for the cleanup," she said, glancing around the chaos. Overturned chairs, spilled drinks, a lone heel abandoned by the bar. "We're family. I need you here." I nodded, surprised by how much I wanted to stay, to be part of this instead of watching from the edges. Then Victoria appeared, her steps slow, her silver hair still perfect despite the night's unraveling. She stopped a few feet away, arms crossed, her face a mask of control. But her eyes flickered, something unsteady in them. She cleared her throat, voice barely above a whisper. "I was wrong to listen to him, Scarlett." It wasn't an apology, not fully, but it was more than I'd ever gotten from her. My breath caught, and I nodded, unsure what to say. She lingered a moment longer, then turned back to the crowd, directing staff with clipped orders like nothing had happened. It wasn't much, but in her world, it was a crack in the wall she'd built between us. Grace sank into a chair, staring at the platform where it all fell apart. "I thought he loved me," she said, almost to herself. I sat beside her, Lily climbing onto my lap. "He didn't deserve you," I told her, meaning it. She gave me a sad smile, then reached for my hand, squeezing it. "I've missed you, Scar. Really missed you." My throat tightened, memories flashing. Her braiding my hair as kids, giggling over secret snacks when Mom wasn't looking. Before the blame, before the distance. "I've missed you too," I said, and it felt like a stitch pulling a wound closed. Lily yawned, resting her head on my shoulder. "We're the good luck, right, Mommy?" she mumbled, half asleep. I kissed her forehead, her curls soft against my lips. "Yeah, baby, we are." Grace watched us, her expression softening. "She's got your strength," she said quietly. I should have seen it sooner. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded, letting the moment settle. The gala was over, the glamour stripped away, but something new was taking root. Something messy, fragile, and real. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the outsider. Not with Grace's hand in mine, not with Lily's warmth against me. Maybe this was what family was supposed to feel like. The next few days felt like stepping into a different life, one where the air wasn't heavy with unspoken blame. Grace showed up at my apartment on a rainy Thursday, her arms loaded with a cardboard tray of coffee and a bag of donuts from that little bakery on Clark Street I'd always loved. She kicked off her boots by the door, her hair damp and curling at the ends, and grinned. "Thought we could use some sugar after everything," she said, setting the haul on my scratched-up kitchen table. I grabbed mugs from the cabinet, the clink of ceramic steadying my hands. Lily bounded in from the living room, her dolls abandoned mid-story, and climbed onto a chair. "Are those chocolate ones?" she asked, eyes wide. Grace laughed, sliding the bag toward her. "Only the best for you." We sat there, the three of us, steam curling up from the coffee as rain tapped the windows. Grace took a sip, then leaned back, her voice soft. "I was jealous of you, you know. Growing up," I blinked, nearly choking on my drink. "Me? Why?" She shrugged, tracing the rim of her mug. "You were always stronger, tougher. I hid behind Mom's approval, but you kept going, even when they all turned away." Her words landed heavy, stirring something deep I hadn't dared touch. "I never felt strong," I admitted, staring at the table. "Just invisible." She reached across, her hand finding mine. "You're not to me, not anymore. Lily munched her donut, oblivious to the weight of the moment, chocolate smudged on her chin. "Aunt Grace, you gonna come over more now?" she asked, kicking her legs under the table. Grace smiled, real and warm. "Yeah, I am. Promise." We talked for hours. About the gala, about Lucas, about the years we'd let slip through the cracks. She told me how he'd charmed her into doubting me, how she'd swallowed his lies because they were easier than facing the truth. "Lily's got your fire," she said, watching her skip back to her dolls. "I should have seen it sooner." I swallowed hard, the ache in my chest softening into something gentler. Later that week, Uncle Henry stopped by, a small brown box under his arm. He set it on the counter with a grunt, then pulled out a framed photo. Me and Lily at the gala, mid-chaos, her tiny hand in mine. We were glowing somehow despite the storm around us. "Keep this," he said, his voice gruff but kind. "It's proof you're more than they ever gave you credit for." I traced the frame, my throat tight. "Thanks, Uncle Henry," I murmured. He nodded, then handed me a potted plant, tiny white jasmine blooms just starting to open. "Something quiet but strong," he said, clapping my shoulder. "Like you." I set it by the window, its scent faint but steady, and felt a flicker of something I hadn't in years. Peace. Victoria didn't come, but her presence crept in anyway. The phone rang that evening, her name lighting up the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Scarlett," she said, her voice clipped but softer than usual. "Can we talk?" I gripped the phone, my pulse ticking up. "Sure, Mom. When?" A pause stretched long enough to make me wonder if she'd hung up. "Soon," she said finally. "I'll call again." She didn't. Not that week, but the fact she'd reached out at all felt like a thread dangling, thin, uncertain. But there, I hung up, staring at the jasmine, and realized the curse I'd carried wasn't mine. It was their fear, their need to pin blame on someone. Lily had seen through it, and now maybe I could too. Lily twirled in the living room, her laughter bouncing off the walls. "Look, Mommy, I'm a ballerina," she called, spinning until she flopped onto the couch, giggling. I watched her, so bright, so untouched by the shadows I'd lived under, and something clicked. I wasn't the broken one. I'd built this, her, us, despite it all. Grace sipped her coffee, catching my eye. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, a real smile tugging at my lips. "Yeah, I think I am." For the first time, I believed it. Pain builds you, if you let it. I've learned that the hard way. It's been a week since the gala, and I'm still piecing myself together, but the edges feel less jagged now. I'm in my kitchen, the morning sun slanting through the blinds, warming the jasmine plant Uncle Henry gave me. Lily dances around the table, her bare feet slapping the linoleum, a makeshift crown of construction paper tilted on her head. "Am I your good luck, Mommy?" she asks, spinning to a stop, her grin wide and gap-toothed. I kneel, pulling her into a hug, her curls tickling my cheek. "You're my everything," I say, my voice steady, and I mean it. Every word, every heartbeat. The phone buzzes on the counter. Grace's name flashes up. "Dinner soon? Just us," her text reads. I type back, "Yes," my fingers quick, a flutter of warmth in my chest. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rings, and I open it to Victoria standing there, stiff in a navy coat, a plastic bag dangling from her hand. She doesn't meet my eyes right away, just thrusts the bag toward me. "For Lily," she mutters. I peek inside, a stuffed bunny, soft and gray, the kind she'd have picked out herself once. "Thanks, Mom," I say, soft but firm. She nods, lingering on the threshold. "You're doing okay?" she asks, almost like it pains her to say it. "Yeah," I reply. "We are." She doesn't apologize, not outright, but her shoulders dip and she turns away with a quiet, "Good." It's not a floodgate opening, but it's a crack, enough to let a little light in. Lily races over, snatching the bunny and hugging it tight. "Look, Mommy, it's so cute!" she squeals, then darts off to show her dolls. I watch her, marveling at how she carries no weight from that night, just the truth she spoke and the love she holds. Grace's words echo in my head. She's got your strength. Maybe she's right. Maybe I've been strong all along, just too buried under their whispers to see it. The gala didn't break me. It broke the lie I'd lived with, the one that said I was less, that I deserved the shadows. That night, Lily brushes her teeth, toothpaste smeared on her cheek, and looks up at me through the bathroom mirror. "Mama, are you proud of me?" she asks, her voice muffled by the brush. I kneel beside her, meeting those big brown eyes. "More than you'll ever know," I whisper, tucking a curl behind her ear. She grins, then spits into the sink, adding, "So I'm good luck, huh?" I laugh, a real, full laugh that bubbles up from somewhere deep, making my eyes crinkle. "You," I say, pulling her close, "are the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me." She giggles, squirming free to rinse her mouth, and I feel it settle, the truth I'd doubted for so long. I'm not a curse. I'm a survivor, scarred, sure, but standing. Lily taught me that in one fearless moment, her voice cutting through years of silence. I used to shrink, afraid to take up space, to disrupt their perfect picture. But I'm done with that. If being unbreakable makes them uncomfortable, if it makes them whisper or stare, let them. I won't dim myself anymore. Not for Lucas, not for Victoria, not for anyone who can't see me fully. Grace sees me now, and that's a start. Lily always has, and that's everything.